This episode is presented to you in the form of an audiobook. Have you ever hit rock bottom? A moment where everything feels meaningless, when pain, loss, or failure overwhelms you, and you ask yourself, what's the point of it all? Imagine being stripped of everything, your family, your home, your freedom, even the hope of survival. How would you find purpose then? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? What if I told you there's a way to find meaning, even in the face of the greatest suffering? A way to not just survive, but to rise above your darkest moments with a renewed sense of purpose. This isn't just an idea, it's a truth discovered by a man who lived through one of the most unimaginable horrors in history. In A Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and renowned psychologist, shares his story of enduring years in concentration camps. Surrounded by death, starvation, and unimaginable cruelty, he observed something profound. Even when stripped of every physical comfort and freedom, people could still find a reason to live. Frankl's insight wasn't just a theory, it was a lifeline. Amidst his suffering, he found meaning in helping others, holding on to hope, and believing in a future where he could share what he learned. This experience became the foundation for his psychological approach, which teaches that the search for meaning is the most powerful motivator in life. We'll explore 3 profound lessons that will help you understand how to reclaim your power by choosing your attitude no matter the circumstances. Discover how to transform your pain into purpose, turning even your lowest moments into opportunities for growth, and learn how to create meaning in your life by embracing responsibility and finding hope in the smallest of actions. By the end of this, you'll walk away with practical tools to help you not only endure life's hardships but emerge stronger, more purposeful, and ready to face whatever comes next. Imagine Viktor Frankl in the depths of a concentration camp, surrounded by unimaginable suffering. Stripped of his family, his freedom, and even the basic dignity of being treated as a human, one might assume that he, like many others, would fall into despair. But Frankl discovered something extraordinary, that even in such extreme circumstances, there was one thing the Nazis could not take from him: his ability to choose how he would respond. This realization became a cornerstone of Frankl's philosophy. He found that no matter what external forces may do to you, you retain the ultimate power to control your inner world. He called this the last of the human freedoms. It's the freedom to decide your attitude in any situation, no matter how dire. No matter how challenging life becomes, you always have the power to choose your response. This is not about denying the difficulty of your circumstances, but about reclaiming the one thing that is always within your control: your attitude. Frankl put it best when he said, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms: to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." Even when faced with starvation, humiliation, and the loss of loved ones, Frankl chose to focus on what remained within his power. He clung to hope, envisioned a future where he could share his story, and found meaning in supporting his fellow prisoners. Now, let's bring this idea closer to home. Imagine losing your job. It's devastating. You might feel ashamed, afraid for the future, and angry at the unfairness of it all. These feelings are valid, but what happens next is what truly defines you. You could let despair take over, or you could see this as a moment to pause and reflect. What opportunities does this open up? Could it be a chance to pivot towards something more aligned with your passions? Could it push you to learn new skills, start a business, or even just reset and take care of yourself for a while? The situation hasn't changed, but your response to it could be the difference between being stuck and moving forward. In the camps, Frankl saw 2 types of prisoners. Some gave in to hopelessness, losing their will to live. Others, even in the face of unspeakable suffering, found reasons to keep going. For some, it was imagining a loved one they hoped to see again. For others, it was faith, art, or the desire to bear witness to history. Frankl himself imagined lecturing about his experiences, which gave him a sense of purpose. His circumstances were beyond his control, but his attitude wasn't. How can you apply this in your life? Here's a simple process. Pause and reflect. When faced with a challenge, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, am I letting the situation control my emotions, or am I consciously choosing how to respond? Reframe the challenge. Instead of focusing on what you've lost, focus on what you can gain. For example, if you've experienced failure, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can it make me stronger or more prepared in the future? Adopt a growth mindset. Remember that adversity often presents opportunities for growth. Repeat to yourself, I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control how I respond. Daily practice. At the end of each day, reflect on how you handled difficult moments. Write down one thing you could have approached differently and one moment you're proud of how you responded. By practicing these steps, you'll strengthen your ability to choose your attitude in any situation. This isn't easy. Frankl himself admitted that this freedom takes effort and discipline. But once you realize that your power lies in how you respond, even life's darkest moments can take on a new meaning. Once you've taken back your power to choose your attitude, the next step is to confront one of life's hardest truths. Suffering is inevitable. No one escapes it, whether it comes in the form of loss, failure, or personal hardship. But Viktor Frankl shows us that suffering doesn't have to be meaningless. In fact, it can become one of the greatest sources of purpose in our lives if we learn to interpret and endure it with intention. When suffering is unavoidable, we have the power to give it meaning. Instead of running from pain or becoming consumed by it, Frankl teaches us to ask, what is this suffering asking of me? How can I grow from it? He explains this beautifully. If there is meaning in life at all, then there must be meaning in suffering. Suffering, Frankl argues, isn't inherently meaningless. It becomes meaningless only if we allow it to be. By reframing our pain as an opportunity for growth, connection, or contribution, we can transform even the darkest moments into a source of purpose. Frankl's own experience in the concentration camps is a powerful testament to this idea. Faced with unimaginable suffering, he realized that he had two choices: succumb to despair or find meaning in his pain. He chose the latter. Frankl imagined himself standing before a lecture hall, teaching others how to endure suffering with dignity and courage. This future goal gave him a reason to keep going. It didn't erase his suffering, but it gave him a purpose that made enduring it worthwhile. He also observed how other prisoners found meaning in their suffering. Some clung to memories of loved ones they hoped to reunite with. Others saw their pain as a testament to their faith or as a chance to help others endure. These prisoners weren't spared from suffering, but they were spared from hopelessness. Now, think about a time in your life when you experienced deep pain, perhaps the loss of a loved one, a betrayal, or a period of overwhelming failure. In that moment, the pain likely felt all-encompassing, as though it might never end. But looking back, did it shape you in some way? Did it deepen your compassion, make you stronger, or teach you something valuable? For example, imagine someone grieving the loss of a loved one. The pain is real and inescapable, but over time, they might find purpose in supporting others who are experiencing similar loss. They might volunteer for a grief support group, write about their journey, or simply be there for a friend in need. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes meaningful. Here's a simple practice to help you find meaning in suffering. Journal your struggles. Write about a challenge you're currently facing or have faced in the past. Describe the pain and emotions in detail. Ask the right questions. Once you've written about the experience, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to help others? What strength have I gained from enduring this? Turn pain into purpose. Think of one small action you can take to turn this pain into a meaningful story. For example, could you share your story with someone who needs encouragement? Could you write a letter of advice to your younger self? Frankl reminds us that suffering is a universal part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to define us. Instead, it can refine us, pushing us to grow, connect, and contribute in ways we never imagined. By choosing your attitude and finding meaning in suffering, you take the first steps toward reclaiming your sense of purpose, even in life's darkest moments. Choosing your attitude and finding meaning in suffering are powerful steps toward reclaiming your purpose. But purpose itself often becomes clearest when we take responsibility, when we recognize that life is asking something of us. Viktor Frankl believed that purpose isn't something we passively wait to discover. It's something we create by accepting the unique responsibilities life places before us. Purpose often comes from taking responsibility for something or someone. It's about stepping up to meet life's challenges and embracing the tasks or roles that only you can fulfill. Frankl put it this way: life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. When you accept responsibility for your life, your relationships, or even a small goal, you begin to create meaning. Responsibility grounds you. It gives your actions purpose and connects you to something larger than yourself. In the concentration camps, Frankl found meaning through his responsibility to others. He saw himself as responsible for keeping hope alive, not just for himself, but for his fellow prisoners. He encouraged them to find reasons to endure, shared his vision of a better future, and helped others cling to whatever threads of meaning they could find. This sense of responsibility gave Frankl purpose even in the face of overwhelming suffering. It wasn't about solving every problem or saving everyone. It was about doing what he could, where he was, with what he had. Now let's bring this idea into your life. Have you ever felt aimless, like your days were slipping by without direction? It's a common feeling, especially during tough times. But consider this. What if you took responsibility for just one meaningful goal, no matter how small? For instance, you could decide to support a friend who's struggling, take care of a family member in need, or volunteer for a cause you care about. Even something as simple as committing to a personal project, like improving your health or learning a new skill, can give your days more meaning. Responsibility isn't about grand gestures, it's about showing up consistently for what matters. To help you embrace responsibility and find purpose, try this exercise. Reflect. Ask yourself, what is life asking of me right now? This could be a responsibility to yourself, like improving your mental or physical health, or a responsibility to others, like being there for someone in your life. Choose 3 commitments. Write down 3 responsibilities you can take on this week. For example, call a friend or relative who's going through a tough time. Dedicate 30 minutes a day to a personal goal or project. Volunteer for a cause or take one step towards supporting your community. Follow through. Pick one task to act on today. Notice how it feels to show up for that responsibility and how it impacts your sense of purpose. Frankl reminds us that purpose isn't something we stumble upon. It's something we create through action. By taking responsibility for even the smallest tasks, we contribute to a greater sense of meaning in our lives. When you embrace responsibility, you're no longer waiting for life to give you purpose. Instead, you're stepping up and creating it, one choice at a time. By choosing your attitude, finding meaning in suffering, and embracing responsibility, you begin to see that purpose isn't something distant or unattainable. It's something you can cultivate, even in your hardest moments. Viktor Frankl's journey shows us that meaning is not found in perfect circumstances, but in how we respond to life's imperfection. Frankl teaches us that meaning can be found even in life's harshest moments. When we take back our power to choose our attitude, we reclaim control over how we face challenges. When we find meaning in our suffering, we transform pain into growth. And when we embrace responsibility, we take purposeful action to create meaning in our lives and the lives of others. These lessons remind us that purpose isn't about avoiding hardship, but about discovering who we are in the face of it. So, the next time you feel lost or overwhelmed, remember, the search for meaning is what makes life worth living. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what is life asking of me right now? The answer may just lead you to the path forward.